Hello, hello, hello. We are live.
Hello.
Hello.
How are
Um,
you?
I am wonderful. I'm wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Let's take
Welcome,
a few
welcome.
seconds to share this so that we can invite our guests. But we made it here. Before we start, I didn't want to start this alone. I wanted to make sure that my partner tonight is here with me as we start this joining together of She Speaks. Welcome, everybody. So let's share so that we
Good
can go into
evening,
this all
everyone.
important time. Yes.
Hope everyone is enjoying this beautiful weather.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Just want to share, make sure we have people to watch us. Okay. I'm just checking. I don't see checking to make sure we're everywhere. Everywhere that we need to be, that we are on and we are live. Um, I may just need to let me go on mute for now. I'll be back.
Okay.
We're getting some technical help here.
Sometimes it's needed.
Oh, all right, thank you. All right, I'm still gonna try to share so we get some people to we're not telling the stories to ourselves. We want people to watch this. Okay, copy link. How was your Sunday?
Very good. Very good.
What the pastor said today?
So I had the benefit of being in a couple of services. Our dance team, our high schoolers,
Mhm.
had the opportunity to participate in the youth service in Lanham. And so we went there. They didn't have a preacher, but they did do a panel discussion on relationships, and what to do and what not to do, especially with their generation. And it was pretty interesting talking about, not allowing themselves to be treated as common, day to day stuff. And if recognizing that if somebody has not made their intentions known, then you guys are just friends. So, it was pretty good. And then came back to our youth service here. And we have something going on called Solemn Assembly. And it's a period of time where it's just intense worship, prayer, for about 7 days. And today is the last day of it. And so during service today was just worship and prayer. And a lot of our young people, we've got some really amazing, amazing young people who are just, man, to watch them maturing, it's such a joy. Reminds me of
Amazing.
how I enjoy listening to your son's podcast and some of his stuff that he does. It's very, very good, very
Yeah.
pertinent and relevant for today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So I didn't go to church today, but I usually my church is in Minneapolis.
Okay.
So I listened to the service today, and the sermon was brought by Glenn Toby,
Okay.
Ebenezer Community Church, and he talked about the parents and the children and not spoiling the rod and making sure that you train up your children in the way that you want them to go. Amazing
Mhm.
time. Our pastors have been away and they just returned from Ghana. So we're
Okay.
here. We're happy if you're just joining us. We want to say welcome to She Speaks. This is the first episode, and our guest tonight is Stephanie Paraiso. Am I saying your name right?
Paraiso. Paradise
Paraiso.
in Spanish and
Paraiso, and I'm the host, Glendy Jane Juniors. We're here. Please share. We're just starting. We have not even started the conversation yet. We just wanted to, we first of all want to say thank you to our major host. Our main host is focused on Liberia with Dennis Jar and Anthony Sie. I'm so excited that they could do this. And we want to say we'll give you a little history about. I didn't want to do this alone, like how you did the traditional thing. You come on and then you talk and then you bring the guests on. No, I want the guests to come here and hear too. So if you're watching, please share. Let us know that you're here in the comment section, because we're going to flip to it to make sure if people are asking questions. um, I was watching to see if I can share, and if it's on, it's also on my page. Um, so we can share and just make sure that everybody who needs to watch this show can watch this episode. But let me talk a little bit about She Speaks and the importance of She Speaks. So if you know me and if you are associated with me or you know anything about me, you know I love groups. I'm always starting some kind of group. I'm always a part of some kind of women's group. Um, and this is my life. This is what I like doing. But I think coming off the backdrop of me having a very I don't know how to describe my story. I know Stephanie described this her story to be one of an overcomer. I don't know yet. I want to say resilient, but there may be other things that have also endured and encountered. So I have not found that one word yet to describe what my story is, but I always wanted to have an opportunity where we give people the chance to speak to tell the truth, to tell their story. And so this space, She Speaks, is a space where we want people to come boldly, to come with no blemish, to come with no fear, to come with trust. You have to be ready to tell your story. One of the reasons why I think it is important to tell your story is that life is moving fast. So things are playing around us very fast. Life is moving so fast, and that we're not able to, and before we realize it, some of us will be gone and we wouldn't be here. And our children that will leave back here may not have an opportunity to say, what if my mother was here? What would she have done? And so we wanted to have a space where we could talk, where we could come and talk, and you just tell. And one of the things I told Stephanie is, I don't want to know your story before you say it to us. I want to hear the story just as much as the first time you tell it. I want other people to also hear it with me. I don't want to hear bits and pieces. I want to be just as authentic and surprised to your story. So I want to encourage all of you, if you're out there and you have an intriguing story, and you have a story, because people learn different things from different stories. But if you have a story where you have a lesson, and it may not matter to anybody else, but to you, your story is your story, and you're the authentic owner of that story. And that's why we wanted this space. But this is something I want to tell you. Every time you hear those two words, she speaks, I want you to take a break. Like before you say it, I want you to recognize that you're doing something magnificent. You're doing something huge. She speaks. She speaks. She is not an ordinary person. That she speaks. I want you to be able to identify yourself with those two words, she speaks. And knowing that when you speak, someone's going to listen. And so the general theme and name of this platform or this show is She Speaks and the World Listens. Even as one person will hear your story and move on from there, that is one person more than you had before, that didn't know your story, that now knows your story. Everybody is going to take something from that story. So when you're ready to tell your story, um and you want to be able to get to the place where you can tell your story and not worry about what people are going to say. I'm at a place, one of the reasons why I wanted to do, and I think I told Stephanie a little bit, is I'm at a place now in my life where I want to tell my story. And this She Speaks is starting that journey. So every day I'm going to tell, every time I get a guest, as they share, I'm going to share a little bit of myself, and so that we're telling our stories together. So if you're here, I want to welcome you. Thank you. I don't have anybody in the background that's working or that's doing this. Like I say, I want to first acknowledge Focus on Liberia, Dennis Shaw, and Anthony here for allowing us to also share this. This is streaming live on my page. It's on the Focus page is on my YouTube, and it's also on my LinkedIn page. And that's what our guest is already here. But you know what? Let me just be formal and read something about this lady here before we go into her story. So please share, help us to share this show. We know that everybody may not get to see it at the same time, but those of you who have come now to hear it, we want to thank you. Today, I am honored to welcome a very special guest to She Speaks. And you know what? She is our very first guest. So before I go to the second part, I want to say that Stephanie and I connected a few years ago when we were doing the American Idol, Just Sam. And Stephanie actually connected with us to see what she could do to share, to help us carry the story. And from that connection, I never met Stephanie. We agreed on so many things. Whatever help we needed, how we needed her to talk about Just Sam, she was willing. She came and she helped. Thank you, Sis Daba, for watching. I'm so excited that you're here. And so Stephanie and I have connected. And then come to think about it, one evening I'm home and Stephanie is actually in my house. Stephanie is visiting my cousin Natalie, and I'm like, what? And Stephanie had no idea that she knew somebody who knew me, and that's where our connection have come from. So I have a lot of women already lined up for this show, She Speaks. We're going to start off first by doing it once a month to give it some breather, give the story some time to fester itself into homes, and people can live and hear and gain some wisdom for it. And then as time goes on, we may do it twice a month, or then we may do it every Sunday if we have the time. But for right now, it's going to be the last Sunday in every month at 6:30 p.m., streaming live on Focus on Liberia and on my personal pages. So let me continue about this lady here. When you see the name, you want to think that she's not Liberian, but you'll hear about it later. She is Stephanie. Please say your last name.
Paraiso.
Paraiso. And you'll tell us about that name. Where is that name coming from? You're going to tell us about it. She's also known as Israel's Praise, a woman of faith, resilience, and purpose. Born and raised in Liberia, her journey began in the midst of challenge and change, including memories of the Liberian Civil War that shaped much of her early life. Through every season, she has held onto her faith and found strength in her voice, her gift of music, and her story. Today, she joins us to share openly about her childhood, her experiences, her struggles, and the lessons that have brought her to where she is now. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody watching, I want to welcome you, Stephanie, and we want to thank you for being our first guest. So let me ask you first, how does it feel that Glennie decides to do a podcast strictly to focus on women and their stories, and then you get to be the first guest? What does that mean to you? What does that say to you?
First of all, it's humbling because you're a person that I truly admire. I think the biggest thing I admire about you is you said it well, not just resilience, but you've become the voice for so many of the voiceless. And it's something that I'm passionate about. People who don't have an opportunity to fight for themselves or have a voice or have someone back them because of whatever limitation. And I think that's one of the things that just really drew me to you. And it's really humbling because anybody could have been the first, right? So now the pressure is on because I'm just like, okay, you can't mess this up now. You got to make her first show the bomb. Like, what are we going to do? And as we've been sitting here, I've just literally been saying, God, please help me tell this story and please help this show become something that is so incredible because so many women have so many stories to share. Number one, they're afraid. Number two, they feel like no one cares. And number three, it's like some people are so ashamed when they overcome so much. You know, talking about the Civil War and all these people that went through that war and what they endured. Can you imagine if we just gave everybody a chance to tell their story of how they went through such a crazy time and they're still here? They were able to pick up the broken pieces of their lives and rebuild. That speaks volumes. Not many people have that in them. Not many people are able to achieve that. And so for me, it's not just humbling, but I am just so, I don't even know how to put into words because this is something that is so needed. And you have a knack of tapping into that need and making it come to life. So thank you. The pressure is truly on.
No
I'm
pressure,
gonna
no
do my
pressure,
I'm gonna do my best. But
no
thank you for doing
pressure.
this because I know so many are gonna come after when they see that it's something that they are able to do and they realize they have nothing to be ashamed of.
Absolutely. So let me just say before we start the show, and there is some introduction to all of you of our guests. Please share the show if you're watching. This is our first episode. We're coming off the backdrops of She Speaks. I want to also speak to, because I see Senator Dabra Rabla watching, so our political leaders, this platform is equally yours. If you have a story, you're a woman, you have a story to tell other young girls that you mentor will want to hear your story. People want to look back tomorrow and say, let me see, how did Senator Daba Vabla get to acquire, to get to become a senator of Liberia? So we're opening the doors to everyone. We want mothers, we want men to come. And if you have a story that you want to tell through a woman, please come on. But before we start the interview, I want to read, it took me about 3 weeks to write the song. I wanted a song that I would resonate for this podcast. And bear with us. This is the first episode, so we may fall off key a little bit. or fall off the stream yard as it relates to what we're supposed to say. But you're here for the introduction, and so we want to make sure that we give you a proper introduction. So I want to read the first verse, and then we're going to listen to the song. Wherever you are, as you listen to the song, our theme song, She Speaks, for this program, I want you to listen to the words and see if you find yourself in the words. So the first verse says, she walked through the fire. She carried the light, turned pain into purpose, found strength in the fight. Every scars tells a story. Every tear became grace. Now her voice is rising, no fear left to face. From silence to power, from broken to brave. She's standing in purpose with lives she will change. She speaks and the world will listen through every trial, through every vision. I'm going to play the song now because I want you all to hear it. This is our theme song. Every time we come, we're going to bring you back to where we started. So listen to the words. I'm not going to sing along. Guess what? I can't go that high, but my daughter is learning the song because she sings way better than me. And she's going to one day there, we're going to see a video of her singing with my son playing this song because I truly, this song was really written by me. Right now, it has an AI voice and, and AI instrumentals, but pretty soon my children will be able to do this for me.
She walked through the fire, still carry the light, turn pain into purpose, found strength in the fight. Every scar tells a story, every tear became grace. Now her voice is rising, no fear left to face. From silence to power, from broken to brave. She's standing in purpose, with life she will change. As she speaks, and the world will listen. Through every trial, through every vision, her story matters, her voice is strong, turning pain into purpose all along. She speaks with courage and grace, tears and hope in every place. Real stories, real truth, real dreams. That's the power of She Speaks. From the ashes of struggle, hope learned how to rise. With faith as her anchor and fire in her eyes, building bridges for others, giving strength to the weak. Every woman has power, every woman can speak. No longer hidden, no longer afraid. Oh, the voices of women will never fade. As she speaks, no longer hidden, no longer afraid. Oh, the voices of women will never fade. As she speaks, and the world will hear. Voices of women will never fade. Her journey and truth, her legacy, a voice that rocks in destiny. She speaks, and nations will sing the power of a woman's story. Real stories, real truth, real dreams. That's the movement of She Speaks. Heart. Real stories, real truth, real dreams. That's the movement of She Speaks. Heart.
Yes, She Speaks. I can sincerely say that I'm also a songwriter now. All right, let's go into the story. Talk to us, Stephanie, about what you want us to hear your story about growing up in Liberia as a young woman. Let's start from there.
I think honestly, those were the best memories I have. Um, it was at a time Liberia was thriving. It was at a time Liberia was, I believe, was at its peak, and so much was happening. I mean, we had tourism where people were coming to Liberia to look at what our country was as the first national republic, first independent republic, and just realizing where we stood. I am the grandchild of a diplomat. My grandfather served on that first security committee for the UN when Liberia was selected to be. And so the stories of how Liberia was a part of so many other countries gaining their independence, what we were able to do with collaboration with the OAU, with ECOWAS, and all those things. I lived hearing those stories. And so for me, I've always been so proud of Liberia because not only was my grandfather a civil servant, all of my uncles and aunts served the Liberia government. And so my mother was a deputy minister of tourism for a long time before the war, after the war. And those are things that I cherish. My childhood was wonderful. I mean, the biggest thing that my mom would always share with me, she was like, Stephanie, those memories, hold on to them because if you come now, Liberia is not the same. And I could not fathom it because I thought to myself, yeah, I know war came. I understand that. But you mean to tell me like some of the things that we enjoyed, like the things like Ducor and Hotel Africa and Sophie's ice cream and Bonja and Wild's ice cream, all of those things that were like milestones, the St. Patrick's Olympics, convent, cathedral, our basketball, kickball tournaments, marching on Flag Day, all of those things. We made some of the best friends. Your cousin was my classmate. We have cherished memories, and she and one of my other classmates have been best friends for the longest time. They're still friends today. They may as well be sisters at this point, and it's like all of those things were built in a place where community was so important.
Mhm.
And I cherish it because those are my best memories. And it breaks my heart because sometimes I think that our children now, and even the ones prior, were cheated out of such a rich heritage because war came and just, it put I'm trying to use a word that's not so harsh, but it did changed the trajectory of a lot of what maybe you and I and so many others remember about Liberia when it was thriving, the tourism, the
Yeah,
people coming to visit, how many of our friends went abroad to school and brought home tons of their friends because it was the thing to do,
yeah,
and now it's like to see things go so far back and we're
yeah,
struggling to rebuild to where we used to be. Not that Liberia is so bad off that things are not coming back, but it's not like what it used to be. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. My childhood was amazing. I mean, I have pictures of the beaches and things like that. Sunday was me and my uncle's beach day. So as
yeah.
long as I went to church, my grandmother was like, okay, you can go to the beach with your uncle. But those are the things that I remember. And then after the beach, we went and got ice cream. And all
Yes.
your friends were there. You
Toughness.
ran into your friends,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It was those little things. And then everybody looked forward to the St. Patrick's Olympics. It was the basketball games, then the dance after. Everybody had their class parties. So it's like, okay, you at BW Harris, your ninth grade party, y'all doing this, and we're
Mhm.
coming it's those things that I cherish the most. And, I miss the most, honestly.
Yes. I think for me too, I still feel that Sophia ice cream is the best, was the best ice cream ever. And I think that strawberry, oh my God, I can still taste it till today. And
Yep.
strawberry, so when I can't, I don't like the vanilla, so I do the strawberry, or I'm gonna do butter pecan. But I still feel those were those were the days, and those were the days that we missed from our story, and those are the things that we still need to hold on to and talk
Yeah.
about. I want to pivot a little bit to your family. You talk
Right.
about your mother. Tell us about other siblings that you have. Tell us about your family, and what are some of the challenges you have from your story, and what are some of the light moments, or what are some things we can learn from your story and from your mother.
So my mother was 100% Liberian. Both her parents were Liberian. My father, his mother was Guinean Ivorian and his father was French Brazilian. And so hence my last name, Paraiso, which means paradise.
Okay.
And my mother and my father met in Ivory Coast. And so that's how that connection came. My mother and my aunt went to college in the Ivory Coast, and that's where she met my dad. Family dynamic, even a little further to my grandparents. My grandparents served in the Foreign Service. So my grandfather and my grandmother served as ambassadors to, let me make sure I get it right, the UK, Spain, Ghana, Nigeria. There's a couple of more. The reason those I remember very profoundly is because my mother was born in Nigeria. My aunt was born in England. My youngest aunt was born in Liberia, but as an infant was when my grandfather was assigned to Spain, and my uncle was born in Ghana. And
So
so
you were in an ambassadorial family.
I was, I was. And so, growing up, we got to hear the wonderful stories and see the pictures. You
Mhm.
know, um, a gentleman, I think his name is Derek Moore, posted a picture, and my grandfather was in that picture. And I thought, wow, people
Yes.
are talking about this picture. This is a picture that I looked at in a family album at home. You know, it's sometimes it's not a reality for you, the importance that people in your family serve because
Mhm.
you live with them daily. So it's like sometimes it's so weird because people have this outlook of them and then you have a different perspective. And so it's like, a lot of people, oh, you Christina's granddaughter. And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I remember when he served in this country or whatever. And then it begins to sink in for you because one of the things growing up that I've always ascribed to, I don't care what my grandmother and my grandfather achieved or what they did. I don't care what my mother did. Those were their accomplishments. I can boast about it all day, but I have to blaze my own trail. And because of that, that is one of the reasons at an early age I decided that whatever I wanted to be, I was going to be very intentional about achieving it because I can live in their glory, but what is that going to do for me? I
Absolutely.
have to tell my own story. And so yeah, there were challenges because as much as people are so excited that these people are your family members, there are also people who are not excited that these are your family members.
Mhm.
And so living with that and the heartache sometimes of having friends who weren't able to have the same as you. And the reason I have balance in that area is because my grandmother was from Grand Cru County. My grandfather sang.
So you got some crew
Um,
in you.
yeah, and thank God it's only 50%. Because
Okay.
you people are Pepe. But it's like when you sit and you think about it, my grandmother was very intentional that we didn't treat others differently. And the reason being is because my grandmother was sent at an early age to live with the Congo people or with more affluent people. And one of the things that she explained to us is they weren't They weren't very, they had a problem with her name. So they changed her name so that it would match their family name. And you can look at that two ways. Some people can take offense to that, or some people can say, listen, they did that so that people wouldn't treat her differently.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's the lens you look at it through. Whatever it was, it became something at some point that became uncomfortable for my grandmother. And so she changed her name back. At the end of the day, again, it's the lens you look at it from and the perspective. Because my grandmother didn't like that because she felt indifferent in some way, we were always raised that no matter where someone came from,
Mm.
no matter their story, the same respect that I would give my grandmother was due to that person. So, for example, yes, we had house help, or whatever. I had a nurse. My cousins had nurses, right? We made sure that we called them with respect. We spoke to them with respect. They were not, oh, you got to take off your shoes to come in the house. They did not come through the back door. My grandmother was very intentional about that. And one of the things that my grandmother did that I never understood until as I got older is like every day when they came to work, she would give them lunch money so that they didn't have to go out and look for food or something like that. They could eat what they wanted to eat, not, okay, if you're helping us to cook, my grandmother did all the cooking. So we never had somebody cooking for us. They may have gone to the market, but they were not subjected to eating what ate unless they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
There was provision for them to be able, because she also recognized this may also be what's going to feed their family when they go home.
Yeah.
So they would cook and they would, their kids would either come and get the food and take it home. And I never appreciated that until I got older, because then I hear some stories and I think to myself, wow. And again, it's the lens you look at it from. Was the name changed because they really didn't like her name, or was the name changed because they didn't want her to be treated when she went to school with other people? And so as I grew older, I had to learn how to put things in perspective, because my grandmother ended up finishing school, but then she also had the privilege of going to England, sitting with the Queen, going to the UN, those types of things. My grandmother and my mom were featured in, I think it was either Essence or Ebony. I have the picture. Um, but those are things that resonate with me, because it doesn't matter how your story starts.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever God has set as the course for your life will happen. Who thought that a young lady from Grand Crew County, who someone had to pay her tuition to go to school so she could be educated, would end up sitting with the Queen of England?
Mm.
Never judge somebody based on what you think, because you never know what the end of the story is. And that is why my grandmother raised us to be proud of who we were, native, not native. Walk into a room, know that you have just as much right to be in that room like anybody else. I didn't understand what affirmations were until I got older, but my grandmother used to make me stand in the mirror every single day and recite affirmations that I was smart, I was good enough, that I could walk into any room and I could fit in and blend in just like anybody else, and that I didn't have to feel indifferent.
And I- and I
Um,
I think sorry, I wanted to just say
Go
here
ahead.
before I lost that thought. And I think as you're explaining your story, that has probably shaped you to where you are today.
It,
And to say that you're coming from Liberia and you get into a space where you're growing up and you see where people may be treating people differently, and then you come on this side and you hear a lot about that, but that is also a part of your history. And like you say, it history matters, your story matters, but what is even more intriguing and what is even more good is what you do with the history that you have or the story that you have. So finish your thought, and then we'll. I want to talk about. I think because I want to talk about how does your growing up um compare to where you are now when you see children growing up? What's that in your story? Would you have wanted to grow up here, or would you still say that Liberia was the best place for you to grow up in your story?
Hands down, Liberia was the best place. And I'll tell you
Absolutely.
why. I tell you why. Values. Not that you can't have values here. It's a lot more difficult when there's so many other influences. Liberia is a tiny country, about the size of Rhode Island, a little smaller, right? But we had something called it takes a village. It didn't matter where you were. If Auntie so and so saw you in the street before you could get home, she was going to call your mom, your uncle, your auntie, whoever else.
Everybody.
And it was exactly, it was a community,
She would
you
not
know,
even wait for you to pop out house. She would say, "Come here, come here, come here. Where you going?"
exactly. And she would bring you home. What you doing over here? You know, and another thing is that because we had that level of care, we had that level of concern. One of my proudest moments is when Ebola hit Liberia. The way people came together because Ebola didn't have a price tag or what is the term? It didn't matter if you were rich or poor.
Yes, they didn't know you. Your
It didn't know
identity did
you.
not matter.
It didn't matter. And you know, to see Mrs. Yuri realize that, listen, we can do all the pamphlet passing and all this other stuff. If we don't teach people how to deal with this and make sure that they can prevent this from happening, we've lost a whole bunch of people for no reason. Because of what we were able to achieve in Liberia, do you know that there are articles written about how Liberia eradicated Ebola?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, hands down, it would be Liberia because that sense of community, that sense of belonging, and that sense of pride in being who you are. The one thing I can say about Liberians is that we don't care. We are proud to be who we are.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think for those of you watching, if you're just joining us, this is a new show. She Speaks is what we've called it. And every time we want to say she speaks, we want to feel something. And we want something to leave us as we've created this space where women and men can come on here and tell us their story. We want, as when we're faced out of this world, we want our children to listen to some of these stories, to learn from some of these stories, to learn our history. Because if you have your children, they were all born here, kudos to you if they're interested in Liberia. Some of them are not. Some of them don't care about where you've come from because of what they've heard. So if you've been able to instill that value into them as to how you grew up, we have to create a space where we can say, this is my story. Stephanie is talking about her grandmother. She's talking about growing up. She's talking about going to school. She's talking about how her grandmother had cooks and nurses, but they treated them well. That's her story. You may not have that in your story, but that's a part of her story that she's very proud of. So as you watch and as you join, help us to share the podcast. We're going to be on. This is our first episode. Stephanie is our first guest. We have a whole list of women who have come. We do have one man who has come forth and wants to tell his story with his mother. So that will be coming for right now. We're looking at once a month, but we will definitely, if we need to increase the time, we will increase the time. But let me just read one or two, Stephanie, before we go on to the next. There's a comment here from River Says Pro. He has a few comments that I want to, because we want to be interactive. We don't want to just, I don't want to just be talking to Stephanie. I want to hear what others are saying. River Says is saying, he said, my uncle took on a Conga name. That name propelled him to go to good schools, quality education, and respect in society. And if you're listening and if you've seen that, that is absolutely correct. I can say my father's real bastard name was Majidwa. but that's not the name. He ended up with the junior's name, but the real Bassa name was there. And so we all can identify with that river. It says also Liberia has changed so much. Um, Liberia has changed so much. It is unrecognizable from what I experienced post-war. Sometimes I think the people presently in Liberia were brought from somewhere. That is so funny. But I think they're Liberians. I just think if we don't start telling our stories and telling our history and appreciating where we've come from, it's going to fade. And no
Yeah,
one's going to tell it. And that's why we want to be able to be proud and be bold about the story. So I want us to move on now. I want us, when we move from Liberia, we go into other things, but let's talk about, you mentioned a little bit in your story about the war. What are some of the lessons, the hard lessons that you learn that will stick with your story, and what are some things that you want? And we all have stories about the war. So when you share your piece, I'm also going to share mine, because like I said, this podcast is equally going to be the guest time to share, and then every day, every time we meet, I'll share something from my story so that we'll be speaking together.
yeah.
Okay, so tell us about the war and the impact in your story.
So for me, the war was a little different. And when I say different, um, I didn't get to be in the thick of the war because of my father being Ivorian, and because it was said that's where the rebels came through. My life was more in danger. And my mother felt that, we lived across the street from Harrison Penham, and there were many threats made. And so my mom thought it would be best for me to leave and go to my dad. I ended up with my godparents, BG and Francis Freeman, in the Ivory Coast, and my mom and the rest of my family stayed in Liberia. But I had to be in a place of safety. So for me, I experienced the war outside, which I say to some people is one thing when you're with the people and you're going through it. I I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, right? Because what some people endured was horrific to ends that we can't even fathom. But then for those of us who were outside of the war, there were no cell phones, there
Mm-hmm.
were landlines, no communication. So you're stuck with watching a television screen, watching dead bodies on the street, and hoping and praying that it's
Mm-hmm.
not your family member. And then you're hearing news that they're killing government officials, and your family is serving there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're hearing people come through the Ivory Coast and say, "Oh, you little school, Joe. If I find her in Liberia, make sure I kill her because those are the privileged people." That does something to you to the point where you you begin to wonder, and all you have left is God. And that's just the bottom line. There were people who, unfortunately, outside of the country, never heard from their family members, some of their family members again. There are people who lost their entire family members. When I think about some of the stories, I really honestly don't really have a a bad, let me be careful how I say this. I don't have as bad of an experience because I got to leave. If you ask my sister and my mother and my uncle who were in the thick of it, their stories are distinctly different.
Mm-hmm.
Because at one point my mother had to house a lot of young girls so that they wouldn't be forced to sell their bodies just for survival. So what she did was allow them to stay with her, and she taught them things, how to knit, how to make quilts, how to do those things. So, and then they would go and sell those things so that they would have money and they wouldn't have to depend on having to use other means. Because anytime you see war, and this is the reason I got into human services and humanitarian work, because of the Civil War. It was extended to Liberians, whether it was UNHCR, whether it was on the camps, whether it was outside of the camps. But that's one of the reasons I made a decision to do that as a life's work, because I know what it did for Liberians when we had nothing, lost everything. People had to rebuild their lives. Some children had to rebuild their lives with nobody but themselves. They had to go to places like World Vision, be adopted by other people because they lost it all. So for
Mhm.
me, I like to phrase it this way. Not that I didn't go through things. I lost family members. My uncle was murdered. My cousin was murdered. And I don't dilute that in any way. But I had the opportunity to leave. And for me, that's one of the things that sticks in my mind so vividly. What privilege and what underprivilege looks like.
Yeah.
They had the money to go buy a ticket for me to leave. Some people didn't have that option. They
Mm.
had to tough it out.
But you
Again,
get
that
but you get to that place where you can't resent that.
I don't resent it, but it propels me to do the humanitarian work
Mm.
because right now I'm a human rights consultant. Okay, I'm a human rights consultant, and I've literally signed up that if there is war or unrest anywhere, I've signed up to be one of those who will be like those UNHCR workers.
Amazing.
Because the two things that happen: children are molested, they are raped, they're treated, and they are abused, right? Women have to make decisions that they would necessarily not have to make. And so
Mhm.
our goal when we are human rights consultants is to make sure not that men can be protected, but a lot of times men can fight for themselves. But to be the voice of the women and children in those situations to make sure that they are protected. We all use that phrase, be the change you want to see, be the change we want to see. I know what it did for Liberians. So if I have to be the one to go show up and we got a plane to try to get some people out of there and put them in camps so that they're not, you know, at risk of being harmed, then let me be that. Because I feel like it's paying it forward for what was done for my family and me, and giving other people the opportunity to be safe and to have a pathway to rebuilding their lives when unrest and civil unrest comes.
Yeah. So let me just take this moment to share. Like I said, every time we do this podcast, yes, we're talking to a guest, but this She Speaks is also about me telling my story. And today the highlights for me is the war. So I think I probably was 9 or 10 years old, and I remember we couldn't sleep at our home because my father at the time was county attorney for Grand Bassa County.
Mm.
And so we couldn't sleep because he was a government official. We had to leave the house by 5 p.m., go to the neighbor's house to hide and sleep because you never know when they will come knocking. And so I remember that morning, and I still remember. I forgot the artist now, but there was so much of this song. That song, all every time I hear that song, it plays on my mind. We want to know who owns the land, who owns Papa's land. That Papa land, give up the land. And that song was playing that morning. And food business was really hard. Even though we're at our neighbor's place, you couldn't just eat anything you wanted. And so we used to do they used to do starch,
Mm.
like the liquid starch. It used to be a little thicker than regular for it to go in close. We will add carnation milk and sugar. And I remember I was in the backyard, um, sitting there when my mother came to the door and was trying to grab me to come inside because the soldiers had come for my dad. And I still remember that song was playing, and remember them coming and arresting my dad. And I was a little girl, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And they took him from Grand Bassa straight to Morovia straight to Pawtucket. Then we had to leave We had to leave Vassar and come to Monrovia because my mom had to go to the jail to visit my dad. My aunt's husband also had been arrested. He was also in jail. And I remember in April, that morning, my aunt was on her way to Pawtucket to visit her husband, Charles King, and her brother. And as she got to the Pawtucket gate, she heard the gunshots fired, and my uncle was killed. And so my cousin, the only son that she and Charles King had, died a few years ago on the highway with a drunk driver in Atlanta. He got killed, Moses King. And so he didn't get to see his dad. But those stories of the war, they cannot just go.
Yeah.
There's stories that shape us. There's stories that continue to play on our mind. My dad was like, there were 14 of them. There were, I think, 16 of them in the same cell. And they had come that morning to gather the people they were going to kill. And they counted. And so when they entered the cell room to where my father was, he said they counted 14. He was the 14th person. But then one guy said, there's only 13 lipo we got. So he was left. And those 13 men were killed. And that story. So sometimes when people see you, when they see how passionate you are and you're talking about Liberia, they don't know. They don't know some of the stories. And this is why I really want us to be able to talk our story. It may not be an enlightening story to you. You may not be interested, but this is where I've come from. As a little girl, knowing that my father could have been killed, that story lived with me. And every other war that happened in Liberia he went to, but that war from the 1980 coup, I still remember that. And up until today's date, that starch drink with the carnation milk and sugar has always been my favorite drink. So I always River says I want to find who sang that song, but that we want to know who owned the land. Those were the songs that used to play during the 1980 coup. And I still remember that morning when they came to arrest my father. So that's my piece of sharing. Every time we come, I'm going to share something from the guest story so that as they're telling their story, I'm also telling a part of me. And one of the things I was saying, the difference with Stephanie and I is, like you said, you had an opportunity to leave. We couldn't leave. We had to hide. We had to hide so many nights, sleep in this other house and run to this other house. And the thing about it is the stigma of it all is that it almost feels today, like when I look back, it's like it was a bad thing to be a government official.
And it was, because that's what my mom and my siblings, imagine my sister and my cousin, my uncle who was murdered, his daughters were 3, my sister was 2.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine there's a grit and an authority gone out to kill the whole family. Somebody happened to be in the group of people they sent to kill my entire family. Somebody happened to be there. And I am so grateful to this young man. And that's why, again, you have to be careful how you treat people, because my family never treated him differently.
Yes.
When he overheard the conversation, he put his life on the line, went into the house, put my mother, my grandmother, my uncle, and those babies in the back of a station wagon, ripped up the carpet out of our house and covered them with it and took them to safety. You talk about going from house to house. The reason I can't tell the story as well is because I wasn't there, but I heard. That young man came back, and when they found out, they beat him to a pulp, but he still would not tell them where he took my family to safety.
Yeah. And these are the stories that have shaped our lives. These are the stories that have not left us. These are the stories. These are the reason why some people continue to talk about war and economic crime code, because you never move on. People lost. I lost. My uncle got killed. My father would have almost been killed. I was a little girl, but I still remember that story like it was today. So let's move on to some gossip. Let's talk about you. let's talk about let's talk about that. Yeah, we're gonna River says we're gonna change it from sadness. Now we're gonna go into Stephanie's life. Who is Stephanie? Is she married? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you have children? Tell us the intricate, because this is storytelling now. This is storytelling.
Okay, so Stephanie is not married. Stephanie is not married.
Okay, okay.
Single. Stephanie is a youth and young adult. I used to be a youth and young adult pastor. Right now, I serve more as a youth and young adult advisor, chaplain. That's the ministry that God has given me. I don't have any children, but I do have many children, because all of those youth and young adults are my babies. I have a nickname. They call me the Rescue Mother.
Okay.
The reason they call me that is because I was raised by my grandmother, so I tend to be very nurturing. And so,
you know what? Let me say something. I don't mean to cut you off from the juicy part of the story. Don't worry, folks. We're not just gonna let her just slide on this story like that. We're gonna get some details from this story. Listen, it's like, and I think it's a common thing. People who were raised or favored by their grandmothers, it's just different. Like I was favored by my grandmother. I went to my grandmother every vacation to spend time with her. I think I was the second eldest grandchild, but it's like it's just a different thing for people who are loved, or who became so attached to their grandmother. But I just needed to say shout out to all the grandparents who took care of their children, especially the grandmothers who took care of their children. So let's continue this juice. Gotta give us some juice.
My grandmother was my first best friend. My grandmother was my first friend. I'm the oldest granddaughter. I'm the first granddaughter. So there we go. First niece. So I'm the first everything. But yeah, I'm not married, very much single. And I think for me, I don't count it as a loss. And I'll tell you why. Because of what I've been called to do, I think I would probably end up in divorce court with what the lifestyle that I live. Because at any moment at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm up doing something, going to get somebody, on the phone with somebody, having to do an intervention or something like that. So for me, I don't take it lightly. Is marriage something that I wanted? Yes. Did it come? No. And I'm okay. If it comes, I'll be okay. But I'm a missionary at heart. I'm a human servant at heart. I'm a servant leader at heart. It's what I do. My kids know if they need something, they know who to call, because we're going to make it happen. In fact, go ahead.
I'm not sharing any more of my story today, but it's like every piece that you share, I have something to connect with you. Did you want to have children? Did you want to have children?
Oh yeah, I wanted 4 boys, all boys. And I tell you why I tell you why I didn't want girls. I didn't want somebody to replicate me, because I was trouble. and you know what? My mother always used to say, I hope you have as many children as you so you can get payback. And you know what I used to tell her? You see how God is gracious? You see how he's merciful? But then guess what?
He saved the children.
He put me into youth and young adult ministry. Trust me, I have them all.
So let me ask you this question, because we find out that women get a lot of stigmatization. Like even me today, people, even though I'm married, I'm divorced, people tend to use the fact that you don't have children or you don't have a husband as a stigma against you. Tell me if you've experienced some prejudice with the fact that people don't know you and they'll just say, oh, and if you've experienced that, how have you been able to cope with the fact there are so many people who will say, oh, she didn't get no child, she didn't get children, she can't born, and she doesn't have a husband? Because that is a common thing that we find in our history, in our stories as women.
So I'll tell you something else that they say a lot. But you find that out, you can't find somebody. What's wrong with you? You know something not wrong with you?
Oh,
I've been dubbed. Maybe she don't like men.
yeah,
Maybe that's her problem.
yeah.
People have thrown in my face that I don't have children, and the reality is this: I may not have physically had a child, but I did have a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did have a miscarriage. I was pregnant in my tubes. I did have a stroke
Hmm.
because of that. I almost lost my life, and so for
Now
me,
this is what we call her story. Before you even continue, she speaks. And what happens?
exactly,
The world listens. Go ahead.
exactly, and it's something that people want to use as a stigma. They're like, "Oh, you didn't get married, you didn't have children, or whatever." I tell you how I deal with it. Number one, again, I go back to my grandmother, making me very confident in who I am. So my grandmother always used to say, define who you are, or somebody else will define you for you.
Mm.
And I live by that principle. And I'll tell you a funny story. When we came from Liberia and I was in the 11th grade, 12th grade. Yeah, me and Natalie and them were going to the 12th grade when the war happened. We got to the States. And of course, my age, I'm 13 going on 14. What are you doing in 12th grade?
Mm-hmm.
They were like, yeah, something ain't right. So they tested me. And again, shout out to Liberia's education system back then. Because when
Yes.
I came to this country, I took every exam and I scored 100 on every single exam.
Nice.
Shout out to the Liberian education system. We were a force to reckon with. But I digress. Um, and so when I got here, they were like, "Ma'am, you got to go to the ninth grade." I said, "Oh, I'll take the GED. We're not doing that."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not doing that. No. And so I settled. After they talked to me, they had a guidance counselor come and talk to me in New York. I was in New York at first. They said, "Okay, we can't put you in regular school. You've tested, you've passed all of the guidelines. We cannot put you in a regular school. We'll put you in a gifted and talented school." But I had to go to school in the Bronx. Now imagine, fresh out of Africa, I've only come to America on vacation. Now you're trying to send me to the Bronx in New
New
York.
York.
Sheltered Stephanie. I said, you know what? That's not going to work for me. And my aunt could tell. So they were like, you know what? My aunt was moving to Virginia. She came, she scoped out Virginia. She was like, listen, I think this is a lot better for you. Came to Virginia and they were like, we'll test you. But they were not willing to put me in a gifted and talented program. So I had to go to the 10th grade. So I settled on going to the 10th grade. And she explained to me, she said, at your age, your maturity level, you cannot go and start college because you're not mature enough to deal with the people that are there. This is a new culture for you. You're not used to this. I don't want you to fail. And so
Okay.
I settled on going to the 10th grade. And by 11th grade, they put me back in all of the gifted classes. And when I graduated with an advanced studies diploma because I did take the AP courses. And then I went straight to college. But I say all of that to say that the way I handle things, I was in that school and I never forget, I came from Ivory Coast and at the time it was the hammer pants, the boo boo pants, right? And my father thought it was the coolest thing because I like fluorescent colors. So he got me every fluorescent color in those pants, the top, the shoes to match, the book bag to match, and the hairpiece. And I went stepping up in TC Williams looking like a fluorescent solid gold ball.
Is it fluorescent?
Fluorescent solid gold ball. I mean, if you turn off the lights, I would light up the whole room. And I
Mm.
will never forget. I walked into the school and they were talking about me. And this young lady who ended up becoming my best friend, she said she had to know who I was because this young man came to me and he was just very rude and nasty. He was like, take your African booty, scratch yourself back to Africa. You climb in trees and you hang by your tail. He's like, show me where your tail at. And I said, the same place they cut yours from.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and then I turned around and I said, do you know who I am? My name is Stephanie Paraiso, and I don't care what you think about me. My grandmother thinks I'm the best thing since sliced bread. So what?
Absolutely.
And she said she had to get to know who I was because I immediately said that and kept walking down the hallway as if nothing had happened. And she was like, who is this girl? Either she crazy or she has brass. And that's how we became friends.
Yeah.
Because everybody else was bullied by this young man. He said whatever he wanted to say to them, making them cry and all this other stuff. And I was like, do you know who I am? My name is Stephanie Paraiso, sir. Again, it's how you raise children. Parents, hear me. If you hear nothing I say from my story today, reinforce your children. Because guess what? When you define who they are in your home, when they get out to this evil world, nobody will be able to redefine them.
Mm.
I am who I am today. I don't back down from nothing. I could care less what your opinion is of me. I am Stephanie Paraiso. Write it down. Understand that I am who I am. I am uniquely and wonderfully and fearfully made in the image of God, and I will accomplish
Mhm.
everything He put me on this earth to do.
Amen.
Like me
Let's
or
yeah.
love me.
Thank you. I want you to because the storytelling is also about encouraging people. So this piece of people look at like they look at you, people look at me and they think they're so bothered by the fact that oh, I don't have a man and I have not brought anybody to Facebook, or they bother that people don't have children, and like Glenda is manless, Glenda is this, they're saying, and you haven't had any children, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who didn't know that personal story that you've shared. The fact that you lost a pregnancy, you had a stroke, that's an overcoming story. I want
Yeah.
you to speak directly to women who may be in your situation today, who don't have children, may not have somebody that they're married to, but they've been able to overcome, like you've overcome your story, and can tell it. Speak directly to those people who are bothered by what they think your life should be. Speak to them. She speaks and the world listening. I'm sure there are a lot of people listening out there to you today. Talk to us.
Be who God created you to be. Opinions are like ears, everybody has them. Everybody's not your cup of tea. Everybody will not embrace you. Everybody will not be your cheerleader. What you have to do is decide within yourself what you were created to be. God loved you enough to create you and put you on this earth. That's the first thing you need to understand. You have value. I don't care who says what, who cares what. If God thought enough of you to put you on this earth, you have value. Find out what that value is, because He loves you with an unfailing love and unconditional love. And if He didn't love you that much, He wouldn't even go as far as sending His Son to make sure that you have eternal life. People are going to talk. That's just the reality. You have made mistakes. You have learned from those mistakes. You have overcome things. Don't be ashamed of your story, because guess what? Somebody needs to hear that you overcame so they know too that they can do the same. You have no idea who's going to be encouraged by your story, who's going to be empowered by your story. Somebody's waiting to hear you say, I overcame, so that they too can do the same. Don't cheat yourself and them out of that.
Mm.
Live, live, live is my advice to you. People will talk whether you tell your story or not. And the worst part is, if you tell your story, nobody has the opportunity to add to your story. It's out there. It's out there. But if you leave it to them to tell the story, now you put the power in their hand to
Yes.
narrate something that they didn't do or they didn't live through. So you tell your story. Shut the mouth of the false accusers. Shut the mouth of the naysayers. Shut the mouth of the judgment people and tell your story. You will be amazed at who is encouraged by it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's talk as we were almost at the end of the interview or the She Speaks time. I want to talk about, let's talk about your faith, talk about your church work, talk about the music aspect, and just tell us a little bit. And Stephanie is a journalist also, correct?
Sort of.
Sort of. So tell us a
Sort
little
of.
bit about, tell us, we want to acknowledge your faith here, because I also feel that faith plays a huge role in your definition of who you are and how
Yeah.
you live your life and how you overcome things. So as we close, tell us a little bit about the faith, your faith, the work that you do. As we and to those of you watching, we want to say thank you. Thank you for sticking with us. Rose, thank you for reminding. Yes, Sonny, I think Sonny Okusu. Thank you so much, Ro. That Papa Land song is anytime I hear that song, it reminds me of the 1980 coup. Thank you, Rose. To all of you watching, this is a new space. It's called She Speaks and the World Listens. And I hope tonight, as you've listened to Stephanie, you've picked up one or two things that may identify with you, or you've learned something from her story that she's boldly in control of. Thank you, Stephanie. Go ahead.
So I'll share this. It's another part of my story that not a lot of people know. When my mother was pregnant with me, she had toxemia really bad.
Mm,
And the doctors had said to my grandmother that she would not survive childbirth. So they
mm,
basically told my grandmother to prepare her funeral because she
mm,
was swelling uncontrollably and there was just nothing left to do. And my mother overheard the conversation and she turned her face to the wall and she said to God, if you let me live to raise this girl, I give her back to you.
mm,
So when people ask me about my faith and they ask me about who I am, it started from the womb. The Bible's very clear. Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. God knew that he would place me in Scholastica Doe's womb and there would be a threat of death because the enemy wanted to rob her of this child. So God gave her an opportunity. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. My mother in faith turned to the only help she knew and said, if you will do this for me, this is the vow I make to you. Because I couldn't understand my entire life. I could not do certain things. All my friends would get away with stuff. And on my 21st birthday, my mother had that conversation with me. And I thank God for it because you know what? I also had a praying great grandmother who would sit on the porch every morning singing her cruise songs and praying for her children's children and their children's children and their children's children. So be very cognizant of who is within your bloodline. God is it for me. I'm a God girl. If you talk to me 5, 10 minutes, you're gonna figure it out. I'm not bashful about my belief. But one thing I will tell you, if I leave nothing else with anyone watching today, death and life are in the power of your mouth. Be careful what you say about yourself. Be careful what you say about the things around you and the people around you. Because what ends up happening is you shape your world. So the world says it this way: the universe steps aside for a made up mind. Whatever you make up your mind to do, you can achieve it. Remember the Tower of Babel? God had to confound their language because he knew there was nothing they couldn't accomplish. That is the faith I live by. If I set my mind to it, no matter how tedious or how hard it is, if I'm intentional and I trust God enough, I can overcome. Have I been through some things in life? Yes. Have there been times I wanted to throw in a towel? Many times. But there is a God. There is a God who is so mindful of you. He says, he has written, you are his workmanship created in his image to walk in a life that he predestined for you. So, yes, you may have gone through, it's several ways to get to New York from here. You can drive, you can fly, you can take a plane, and you can decide to go to Michigan and then from Michigan go there, or you can take a direct flight. The end result is what? You're going to get to New York.
mm,
The end result is God has a plan for your life. He saw Glendy Junius with two sets of twins who would make milestones in the earth. and that divorce would not be the end of her story. Lack would not be the end of her story. Grief would not be the end of her story. But then guess what? Out of all of that, she would become the voice of women, the voiceless, and those in need, so that they have an opportunity too to be resilient like she was. It is in it's the writing on the wall, y'all. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Don't lose your hope. When you lose your hope, you lose everything else. When it comes to the whole music thing and all this other stuff, my mother was into broadcasting. Poor LBS. I was forced to go there every Saturday for her to record something. And then she decided she wanted to be on the show with Mildred Dean. And I made her a promise I would never be like her. Well, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because people talk so badly about Africa, I wanted people to understand the richness and the value that came from Africa, not just through music. The uranium in our cell phones, the chocolate that they use for Valentine's Day, the roses that they bring, the shea butter. They used to tell us the chocolate was bad when I brush our teeth with it. Now they go get our chocolate and sell it right back to us.
I know, right? Even the Ghana must go back.
They call us,
Yes.
and we must be proud to be Africans because everything the world uses, go research it, go Google it. Every continent uses things from Africa daily, but we are the richest continent and the poorest of people. We have to fix that.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're at the end of the podcast. We want to say to all of you who has been watching, the last question is to that woman out there, Stephanie, who has a story. And it's something I don't know. It's like the more you talk, we connect on small levels. Like we have, like I say, the reason for this show or this space is to take control of your story and tell it. Other people may have varieties of interpretations, or they have different stories, but those stories that they have and they've told and they want to tell, it's not your story. The story that is yours is the one that you're going to tell, and this is what this space is about. So if you're out there and you want to share any most of the stuff that Stephanie shared here tonight, I we didn't discuss it. We didn't pre-discuss this. I said to her, no, I don't want to hear what you're going to say. I want it to be authentic. I want it to be when you're ready to come on to share it, you share, and you've shared some pieces of you that people didn't know. Now people know who Stephanie is. People know some things about you, but to those who will be sitting on the sidelines, not wanting to take control of their stories and tell it. You can decide not to tell it, but take control of it. Don't allow other people to tell things that is not correct about you. So I want you to send a message out to women and men, because we've had kudos to the men who are watching tonight. We've had men and women watching here. So I want you to send a message. And that may probably be your closing comment before we close the show of She Speaks, the first episode, a dream come true for me. I'm so excited about this. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to share this moment with you. I don't take it lightly. To every man and woman out there, I'll repeat this again. You were created for a purpose. You have value. It doesn't matter how dark the story is, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You may be able to do it and have somebody else write the story and you share, put it in a fiction, whatever you have to do to get it out. That's where healing begins. A lot of us want to be healed, but are we willing to do what it takes to heal? I'm sure Glendy can attest. The more she opened her mouth and talked about her story, it became easier. Because let me tell you something. You can't bring shame to somebody who not. You cannot shame the shameless.
You cannot. It's my story to tell.
You let me tell you what I started doing, and here's my last word to you. Let me tell you. Oh, I remember where you used to be. I remember when you used to do this. It used to irritate me, but then the Holy Spirit gave me a comeback to that. Know what the clapback is? Thank you so much for helping me share my testimony, because that's what I used to be. That's not who I am. I don't live there anymore. When you do that, it shuts the mouth of people. Everybody got a past, everybody got a skeleton in their closet. If you were perfect, you would be at the right hand of Jesus Christ, sitting right there in heaven with God. What did Jesus say to those who wanted to take stones and stone that woman? You who are without sin, cast the first stone. Was anybody able? No. So it doesn't matter what people think about you, man, woman, child. Your story has value. You have value. Do what you need to do to overcome. Do it. Don't waste time, because guess what? If you don't tell your story, somebody else sure will.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for coming to tell your story. It's your story to tell, not mine. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for even sharing some personal details with our tonight. And the thing about it, when you're not ready to tell, you're not going to be ready. When you're ready to tell, when that time comes for you to tell your story, so that people can learn from it, people get messages from it, people feel empowered from it, it's gonna happen. So I want to say thank you. I want to thank all those who've been watching. I want to send a special shout out to Sis Daba. She's been watching from the beginning. This is Liberia time, and she's watching tonight. And to Rose also, who is not. I think Rose is in. Where are you, Rose? Where are you? Australia. And she's watching this. It's the time zone is different. Riverside Pro, SOJ, everybody who have watched. So my focus on Liberia people, thank you. Thank you for making this dream come true tonight. And to you, Stephanie, thank you so much for allowing us to use you today to be the one that opens up this new space of She Speaks. As we leave, we're going to play our song. Now I'm a songwriter. Thank you, everybody. We're going to say goodnight. We'll play, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for sharing. But we'll play this song as we go off. Thank you.
She walked through the fire, still carry the light, turned pain into purpose, found strength in the fight. Every scar tells a story, every tear became grace. Now her voice is rising, no fear left to face. From silence to power, from broken to brave, she's standing in purpose. With life she will